What's going on, guys? Welcome to TCG Empire's very first Meta Monday video. Now, Meta Mondays, we are going to analyze decks that are doing well in the meta and that are extremely strong picks for upcoming tournaments that you may have. Today's video is actually Zoro. This particular list won the Montreal Regionals, the in-person one that occurred on, I believe, the 15th of April. So we're going to be looking at this list personally. As a Zoro player, I really like this list. Some of the key factors in it are that it actually plays Radical Beam. A lot of Zoro lists don't have as much defense as they do offense, but this list actually provides some much needed buff to being able to save yourself, especially after you Whitebeard. And when you're at 10 Dawn, if you go second, it allows you to Whitebeard and have the Radical Beam slot open in order to pump you to 11k. So this is the deck profile that we're going to go with. Some of the notable cards are indeed the Rush Zoro. It plays for Edward Newgate because you really want to see this card on curve or by your 5th turn if you're going second, just because it is such an impeccable card. And then we also have cards like the Magara, just to give the 1-drops an extra buff if you're swinging for game. It does only play 3 Sunny, but Sunny, with more and more testing, it is a good card, but actually having the 4th Robin over the 4th Sunny has provided enough benefit, especially in clearing boards and in Zoro mirror matches. So today we're going to get into a couple games and we're going to show you exactly why Zoro is one of the top contenders for any tournament that you may have coming up. So remember, if you guys are new and you do enjoy One Piece as well as Pokemon content, I'm going to have a schedule that sets up to where I upload Pokemon and One Piece every day. There'll be separate videos, but if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to like the video, comment what you think of the deck list, what changes you'd make, how you run Zoro, and remember to subscribe and turn on post notifications. But we'll get right into the gameplay and I'll catch you guys later. Okay guys, so here we are playing against Law with Zoro. We are going first. I'm looking for more disruption cards because Law has turns where it can blow up like crazy, and the things that I want to do are actually try to mitigate his ability. So here we're going to play Sunny. He does play Curly to Dawn. Curly to Dawn, he does grab a Machino, so we know he has a 2k counter. The first thing we're going to do is swing 5k just to see if he's willing to dump or if he wants to take something. Either way, it gets a card out of life or his hand, and if he takes it out of his hand, it's less for him to work with next turn, but if he chooses to take it, then it projects less life. Now, he did counter, which I'm fine with. He did drop a Curly to Dawn, so now what we're going to do is we're going to Vista his Curly, and we're just going to play board control. We do have a Jet Pistol for the following turn, and we also do have an Edward Newgate. Now, Edward Newgate and Nico Robin are great removal options when it comes to playing against Law. Law has a lot of turns where it can go off, but it also struggles in the factor of there's not much that it can do early on until it solidifies a board. So now looking at our hand, we do have some options. We have Zoro, and we have Gordon. I think this turn, what we're actually going to do is we're going to go 5 with Vista, and we're going to start putting pressure on him. He's either going to dump cards or he's going to go to low life. And the scary thing about playing Law is that when you go to low life early on in the game, it really hurts the factor of being able to set up later on, because then you have to start holding cards in order for you to protect yourself. So as you can see, he's protecting. He does have the chopper. We're going to swing for 6k again here just to put pressure, because now he has to start attacking our threats rather than our life. But he also has to hold enough cards in his hand to where he can protect himself, but also play enough to where Law gets his ability. So when Law has low cards in hand and no searchers on board, such as such as Bonnie or Momonosuke, it becomes hard for them to actually progress in the game. Now, as you can see, he did manage to fill up his board. He does have a blocker. He is swinging 5k, and the unfortunate factor of it is that we don't really have anything in our hand. But what we do have is we do have Jet Pistol and Vista. Now, the nice thing about this is that we can clear a lot of his board and set him back. And I think that's something that is incredibly important to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to swing at the Makino, and the Makino dies, which is fantastic. So now we're going to use Vista, we're going to clear the Nami, and we're going to use Jet Pistol on X-Drake. Now, even though we only had a turn of disruption, it still puts him in a position where he only has 4 cards in his hand now, and a leader with a technically and essentially no effect. Our leader has an effect every turn, which is fantastic, but when it comes to this, there's not much that he can really do in order to progress further into the game. Now, he is going to swing 8k, which is fine. We are at an issue where we don't have any combo in our hand, but when it comes down to this, it's not the end of the world. As we can see, we do have Edward Newgate, and we do have quite a few cards in hand, and there's no way that he's going to be able to fill his board, swap out, and kill us next turn. So what we're going to do actually now is use Edward Newgate and just swing 7k at the leader, because if he decides to take, it puts him kind of in a checkmate position, in which case he blocks, but it kind of puts him in a checkmate position, assuming that we have rush cards, and it's a lot to deal with, especially when you're playing Law, because you want to get as much board established as possible. Zoro loves establishing boards, but they can come back from it so quickly, but Law has to actually promote a lot into it. So as we can see, he has to commit 4 Dawn just to even swing with the Vista. So he's going to commit 5 and swing for 8. Thankfully, we do have a 2k counter. He chooses to swing 6. Now, he can swing 9 twice if he doesn't want to play any cards. But in the essence of this, we're safe to take this, and we can counter out of the lost swing. This forces him to put all of his Dawn and be in a situation where, okay, this is it. So now we're going to counter. We have 10k. We could have kept the Nami, but I'm wanting to actually look for some 2ks. So now what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to start with is swinging with Edward Newgate. I'm not playing anything just yet because I don't want to risk dealing with a Jet Pistol and our board being mitigated. So we do have the Curly. Now the Curly can grab Makino, and let's do some math. If he plays a Zoro for 3, he has 7 Dawn left, and if he splits that up, he puts 4 on his leader and then 3 on Zoro. Zoro can swing 8k and leader can swing 9, and that number decreases if he plays the 5-drop Luffy, because then if he plays 5-drop Luffy and splits the Dawn, he can swing 7k and then 9k. So there's no way, even if he double Zoros, that we die next turn with the Makino and Radical Beam in hand. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab the Makino. We're going to leave 1 open for Radical Beam, and we're going to swing for 7 just to see what he does. Okay, so he chooses to take, which is fine, because now what we're going to do is we're actually going to flood the board with 3 Gordons. Now, it's usually overkill, but the Gordons don't serve any purpose, and we want to be able to hold on to the Dawn. We want to be able to maximize our use of the Dawn and hold on to the combos. So even though Sunny would have been a better play, it still comes down to the fact of all that they need is 2 Dawn each in order to swing, and having 2 Dawn, 2 Dawn, 2 Dawn, 1 Dawn. That's 2, 4, 6, 7. This needs 2, and this needs 1. So everything can swing next turn with Dawn placement. And I don't think he's going to be able to have enough to block out of it. So we see here that he is swinging for 6k. So he probably is going to go for 2 Zoro plays, or he's going to swing leader and then Luffy. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the Makino. And now this leaves us open to where there's no way that we can die this turn. There's nothing that plays Rush that is less than a 3 cost. And so we don't need to worry quite as much now. He does have a big hand size, and he does have 2 Dawn left, which does make things a little bit harder. But it's also not the end of the world. So as we see here, we have quite a few swings. So we're going to start, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to start with the 5k from the Curly to Dawn, because it either wastes a blocker or he has to drop cards, right? Then we're going to spend 2 Dawn on Gordon. We're going to swing 5k. He chooses to block, which is fine. So then we're going to swing 5k again with Gordon. He chooses to block, which is fine. Now we're going to kind of seal the deal, and we're going to play Magra. So now this Gordon is 6k. So now we're going to go 7k. And he either has to dump both of the cards to not take it. And so now we're in a spot where we can just swing 6k. And then 13k. And there's no way, nothing in his hand. So as you saw, we won that matchup. Law is a good deck in the sense that if it doesn't hit disruption, or it isn't flooded by a big board that is intimidating or a bunch of attackers that can pop things, Law is a really good deck, but it's also a hard deck to play because, as I mentioned earlier, you have to mitigate between keeping cards in your hand so you can block attacks, but also playing cards so that way you can activate your leader's ability and not essentially have a vanilla leader. So that's the Law matchup. We're going to hop into one more right here, and we'll see exactly what we get. Okay, so ironically, what we are playing against is another Law matchup. So we are going second, which I'm not sure if that's the right curve for him. He does get the extra draw, and he does get to play 2 characters, but it also gives us the chance to play Robin. So we're going to mulligan this hand because we are looking for disruption, as I mentioned before. The first thing we're going to do is Nami, and Nami is going to grab Jet Pistol. I could have grabbed the Brook, but when it comes down to it, I want to be able to disrupt as much as possible, right? So here we're going to swing for 5k. He has a choice to block, take it, or pump his hand up. So he has 5 cards in his hand, and his main searcher in this is Bonnie, so we're going to KO the Bonnie. Now, KOing the Bonnie means that he has to waste 1 Dawn to be able to swing with the Bonnie, play another Bonnie. And also, it means that he's set back a card. So now he has to play 2 1-drops after Bonnie in order to get 4 bodies on the board, when before he could have played 2 Curly to Dawns and filled his hand while getting the 4 bodies. So now he only gets 1 search. So as far as this swing, we're going to take it. It's an early swing, but at the same time, it's not crucial for you to go down in life, especially against Law. Now, Law is tough in the sense of, as you can see right now, there is a lot of draw that they can do. As you can see, he had to invest a lot more resources in order to get to 4, but he is at 4, so it makes things a little bit more difficult. And thankfully, we can swing twice and still play Vista, and I think that that's the best way for us to go, because he either has to dump cards in his hand, as I said, take 2 life, or he's losing 2 blockers. So the result of Zoro being able to push constantly is something that is so important, because it makes the matchups where it's not as favored something into where it's more favored. Now for this Vista, we're actually going to pop the Curly because now he only technically has 2 attackers if he does not play anything with Rush. Now this is where Law starts to do Law things, and he's about to fill his board and do a million and one things, but thankfully we're in a spot where we have attackers on board. It's not like our board is empty, and in order to protect himself, he has to keep going. Now, here we are being swung at. I'm going to keep the Vista alive simply because it means his leader has to choose between something on board or going for life. Now, if he chooses to go for the board, that's fine. But now there's nothing else that I need to worry about as far as swings. And now this is where things start getting scary. This is where Law does Law things. And this is where I said if Law draws well, then it goes better. So as you can see, he swapped right into Vista, and it just made things a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. Now, our board state isn't the greatest, but it can change. So the first thing we're going to do is swing 3k into the Nami. Now the reason why 3 is because he has to drop a 2k if he wants to get rid of it. If he wants to block, that's fine. But it's not really worth saving unless he wants to drop a 2k, which in that case it's fine. But now what we're going to do is we're going to swing at the board now. Part of the reason why Law is so scary is because we have to continuously get rid of the board, right? So here we are playing Zoro, swinging at the Nami. The Nami's gone. Now we have to get rid of a jet pistol in order to swing on the Vista and pop it. So now he's in a position where he has to play 3 of the 6 cards that are in his hand now in order for him to get his leader ability back. Now, playing 3 cards, if they're all 1 drop, short, but most of the time it's hard. And it makes things difficult. Now, as you saw there, he swung with Nami at Vista. In the Law matchup, you need to try and keep board advantage or do as much as you can in order to keep your board sustained. So even though I'm dropping a lot of cards, I'm going to be more benefited in the end because my leader can continuously buff anything that I'm playing. So as we saw here, he ends his turn. He has a full board like normal, like always, exactly like it does. But now we're in a spot where he has 2 cards in hand and he has to try and win within the next turn, because this turn is something that is crucial. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to swing 5k at the leader. Even though he has 2 cards in hand, it's still something where at this point, with having Edward Newgate and such low attackers, there's no way that he's going to be able to make it back and crack back at me. He has to commit so much Dawn, and it just makes things a lot harder, especially with only having 2 cards in hand. Now with having 2 cards in hand, it just means that he has to focus on my board, and yes, he can hit my life, that's fine. But it makes things a lot harder because now this Edward Newgate is going to put in a lot of work at depleting his board of resources. So he chooses to swing 5. A lot of people tend to forget that Zoro is buffed with Newgate, and so it makes things a little bit awkward. So he chooses to swing 8 here. Unfortunately, we have to take that, but it's something where I am completely okay with that. He now has to pump something back. He chooses to bring back the Nami, which is fine. We are about to get rid of a lot of his board and put him in a situation where there's not much that he can come back from. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to swing we're going to swing 7k onto the Zoro, because we know he has Nami in hand, which means he can't out-combo it, right? So now he's in a position where his whole board is about to be decreased by about 3 characters. So we can go here and also pop the blocker. And now he's in a spot where there isn't much that he can do, right? We know he has a Nami in hand. The Otama isn't going to do much. We'll get rid of the beige, and then we can kind of seal the deal by playing excuse me, we can Nami, and Nami will grab us. We'll grab Brook for the 2k counter and then play Sunny. That way next turn we have 3 attackers. No matter what, there's no way that anything can work. And if he wants to kill the Whitebeard with Law, he has to commit at least 8 of the Dawn that he has left in order to swing for 13,000, which is what we would match. Now, when it comes to this, it's most likely not going to happen, and this is where Law really starts to fall off, because the potential for error is crucial. And even here, you know, we see where the board state is kind of problematic, and he chooses to swing for 7k here. I'm gonna take this life. I mean, I have to now, but it could potentially lead to a Magra, which in that case it did, which now kind of seals the deal of us getting 3 attacks through. So we're gonna play the Magra. Now Nami is at 6. We're gonna swing for 6. He has to dump the card in his hand or take the life, and we only have to get 3 attacks through while having 4, and our attacks will just get more powerful as the turns continue. So he chooses to do 7, which is fine. So now we have to go for the strategy of 5, 7, 9. So here we're going to go for 5k with the Sunny. He has no cards in hand, so he's forced to take this. Now if that's a 2k, this is where we apply the 5, 7, 9 strategy. Now just to be safe, okay, the opponent disconnects, but as you can see in this situation, he had no cards in hand. We swung 5. It's guaranteed to go through. He has no Dawn open, so assuming that that card in hand is a 2k, in order to match it, we need to swing 7k. So that's when we swing 7k with the leader, and then he's forced to take that card. And then he has possible of 9k counter in hand, and we have the Whitebeard on board, thankfully. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's video. It was a lot of fun to make. Zoro is a really good deck, and I have a lot of fun playing it. And throughout the rest of the week, you know, we'll go through some tips and tricks as far as playing Zoro, some market watch videos. The whole idea behind this channel is everything TCG, so we're going to go throughout the weeks and have a theme where we focus on a particular deck and focus on the counters for it, how to play it, things like that, and we'll just continue from there. But thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.